Joffrey Baratheon grew up as a spoiled, privileged, and willful child, with a cruelty and savagery that was already evident since a young age. As a young boy, Joffrey was already behaving sadistically, slicing open the stomachs of pregnant cats to see the kittens that they held inside. His supposed father, Robert Baratheon, was so horrified by his savagery that he once punched Joffrey in the face, knocking out his teeth in his rage. And this sort of cruelty and reciprocated violence is what made Joffrey such a vicious king later on in life. Psychologically, Joffrey shows all the signs of a sociopath, tormenting animals, bullying his younger brother Tommen, and taking delight in the physical and psychological torture of Sansa. His proclivity to such cruelty suggests that Joffrey was always more inclined to be a tyrant once he became king. But what if things had been different in terms of his upbringing? Since Joffrey's true heritage seems to be one of incest, a lot of fans tend to believe that Joffrey is naturally prone to be a cruel and sadistic tyrant. From my previous videos on Joffrey, a lot of you guys seem to think the same thing too. However, I believe that nurture also played a very significant role in Joffrey's eventual behavior, as he lacked a lot of positive guidance and empathy in his upbringing. The father who was supposed to raise him, Robert Baratheon, barely did that and openly despised Joffrey's petulance, avoiding him as much as he could if he wasn't beating him or taunting him for being such a disappointment.
You let that little girl disarm you.
On the other hand, his mother, Cersei Lannister, coddled him and indulged his worst impulses, encouraging his vicious nature instead of properly disciplining him.
That's not true. You killed the beast. You only spared the girl because of the love your father bears her father.
I didn't.
When Aerys Targaryen sat on the Iron Throne, your father was a rebel and a traitor. Someday, you'll sit on the throne and the truth will be what you make it.
As a result of this parenting, Joffrey never learned compassion or constraints for his impulses, and Cersei even notes that he never had a close friend of his own age. The poor boy was always alone, looking for the father he never found in Robert. Because of this toxic mixture of nature and nurture, Joffrey grew into a monster. But perhaps with proper guidance and care, he might have grown into something else. In A Game of Thrones, one of the most interesting moments for me was how Tywin was so convinced that if he was able to spend enough time with Joffrey, he could help him become a better ruler, wiser and more just than he currently is. He is convinced that he can offer the guidance that Joffrey so truly needs.
Perhaps you should try stopping him from doing what he likes.
I will.
Tywin's belief that he can change Joffrey's nature is not entirely far-fetched or unreasonable. Because once Tywin begins to interfere in the small council's affairs, Joffrey seems to take more interest in them and wants to be informed about important matters.
I should be consulted about such things.
In fact, Joffrey even begins to take counsel from some of his servants, showing an eagerness to be informed and therefore rule well. Because we see him begin to take interest in Daenerys Targaryen, even when everybody else seems to be ignoring the problem.
Curiosities on the far side of the world are no threat to us.
But how do we know these dragons are just curiosities and not the beasts that brought the whole world to heel?
Because we have been told as much by the many experts who serve the realm by counseling the king on matters about which he knows nothing.
But I haven't been counseled.
You are being counseled at this very moment.
All of this shows that Joffrey can still be molded into a good ruler, only if someone is willing to be patient enough and strong enough to guide him firmly. This notion actually comes from the books, most especially from A Storm of Swords, where Tywin tells Tyrion that there is still time to guide Joffrey and mold him into a good ruler. To Joffrey himself, he presents himself as a guiding figure, teaching him how to be a good king that's feared, yes, but also respected by his lords. He tells him, "Joffrey, when your enemies defy you, you must serve them steel and fire. When they go to their knees, however, you must help them back to their feet. Elsewise, no man will ever bend the knee to you. I personally think that if Tywin had prevailed, Joffrey might have been a much better ruler, less sadistic and savage, and a lot wiser and more effective. History and legend offers us many examples of cruel, wayward princes who matured into capable kings under the right guidance. One of the most famous examples is that of Prince Hal of England, who would later on mature to become King Henry V. In Shakespeare's plays, he's often depicted as a reckless young man who partied a lot and kept bad company in his youth. But when he ascended the throne, and under the right guidance from his councillors, he transformed into one of the most effective kings that England had ever had. And there are other examples of this sort of shift from other cultures as well. Emperor Asoka of ancient India was notoriously ruthless and cruel as a young man, waging brutal wars and even running torture prisons that historians refer to as Asoka's Hell. But after the Kalinga War, the emperor came to an awakening. He embraced Buddhist teachings and renounced violence throughout his kingdom, growing into a more spiritually benevolent king from that point on. These kind of examples show that under the right influence, whether it is through a wise counselor or a spiritual philosopher, a hot-headed prince can change to become a strong and wise ruler for his nation. And I believe that Joffrey Baratheon could have had the same transformation if counselors like Tywin had prevailed in guiding him. If someone had given him a chance or showed him a bit of empathy, maybe he could have been a more capable ruler. Maybe he could have even been a better man. But that is what I think. What do you think? Let me know down below in the comment section, and if you like this video, then please hit the thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel for more content. Also, thank you all for the 10,000 subscribers. This channel continues to grow bigger and more important in the A Song of Ice and Fire community, and I really appreciate you all for making that possible. Thank you so much for watching these videos for as long as you have been, and subscribing to the channel all this time. So let's keep going. Thank you so much for watching this video. Peace.